Hi guys, Fred here from InDesign Tips and Tricks. Today we are going to look at adding bleed in InDesign. We're first going to take a look at what bleed is and why it's so important, and then we'll move on to add it on the Mac. And actually the fundamentals of adding bleed are the same regardless of what design app you're using. So you may have had a job that you've started in Canva that's been rejected by the printer, for instance, and you're not quite sure what to do next. It's quite a misleading word actually, the word bleed. Because it doesn't actually mean that you've got to give blood to get your print job professionally printed properly. That was a lot of P's. Let's have a look. So here's a leaflet for a local bed shop that we do design work for. And essentially both sides look pretty much the same, but there's one big difference. This leaflet here hasn't had the bleed added, so we haven't got 3mm of extra printing around the edge. So these crop marks here are what the guillotine person at the end of the job being printed uses as a guide to trim out our job. This leaflet on the right here has had the 3mm bleed added. And if we look at our crop marks here, they actually run inside the area of the print. So in theory, when these get trimmed along, some of the print gets cut off and we end up with a clean edge on the printed item. So chances are your job isn't going to have just 2 up on a sheet. There's probably 10 or even more on the sheet as it goes through the print press. And as the sheets are passed through the machine, there are little indiscrepancies, and obviously some jobs are potentially printed double-sided. So the print press has to match up on the reverse of what of your design. Then all the sheets go into the end of the machine, they get dried, and then they get taken to the person that is running the guillotine. And their job is to trim out the leaflets. By now, potentially for 1,000 leaflets with 10 on a sheet, you've got 100 sheets. And the guillotine is like a huge knife that comes down through and cuts the job. It's quite capable of cutting 50 to 100 sheets at a time. So what may happen as these sheets are all laid in bulk, as the knife comes down through, can be a slight movement. It's not a lot, it can be 1 to 2 millimeters, and this is why we allow the 3mm bleed. Let's have a look at what can happen when the sheets are potentially slightly out. I've just done that with my knife and ruler, but what it's demonstrated is this is our leaflet that had the 3mm bleed all the way around, and we followed the crop marks, and our image and this paint strip have all bled nicely to the edge of the leaflet, which is exactly what we want, a nice clean finish. Now this one here could have been 5-10 sheets down in the stack, and with that slight movement, what we've ended up with, obviously the guillotine operator is going to go by the guides on the top sheet, but by the time it's got down to this one, if this one has slightly moved by 1 to 2mm, or not even that, we end up with this white line down the side. So, real life scenario, if you've just printed 100 leaflets for yourself, you might get your job back and go, oh no, I've forgot my bleed, and you could manually trim this off yourself exactly as I have. But if you've had 10,000 leaflets done, and these go to your client, they might not be so lenient. So this is why bleed is so important. Sometimes what I see, in particular with adverts that are supplied from third parties where they've designed their artwork in Canva, is they'll bring the image to the edge of their document, and then for whatever reason, they extend the pasteboard with a colour. So although it won't look quite so stark with a white line down the edge, if the trim is slightly out, the image will finish and then you'll see a line of colour, which again looks odd. It doesn't look intentional, and that's what we're going for, is an intentional finish. Let's jump on the Mac and we'll have a look at how to set this up in InDesign. Okay, so we are now in InDesign. Assuming that we haven't got a document set up yet, let's go ahead and create a new one. So we can go File, New, Document. And we know that A5 is the size of our leaflet. So over here, 148mm by 210 high is the dimensions we want. And then we just want to come down to this bleed section here and make sure that we've got 3mm added. So normally, if we just check that, this is what you'll see. InDesign assumes that you don't want to add bleed. So we can just put 3mm in here. And then as you tab across, that fills in those 4 boxes. We can ignore things like slug for the minute, and we only want 1 page because we're just demonstrating the single page leaflet. The principles are the same for booklets and basically anything that is printed. You want to have 3mm selected here. There are exceptions, so when you start blowing up to larger sizes, for instance, and if you're creating things like signage, the printer at the end may actually request that you add 5mm. In some instances, for things like PVC banners, they might even say, can we have 10mm or 20mm or more? So it's always worth just giving your the printer a shout, or looking at the guidelines if you're using an online printer, just to see what their specification is, and that will save you a lot of time in the long run. So now we can click Create. This gives us our A5 page. Before we go any further, let's assume that you've already got your document started in InDesign and actually you can't see the bleed. So this is the document at the moment, and that's what's going to be the finished size, is what's in white. What we see is this sort of reddish pink line around the edge here is your bleed. So if we go into File, Document Setup, and we flick down bleed here, I can actually make this 0mm, and we'll see what that does. So that's basically taking the bleed away from the document. So if your file already looks like this, you want to go into File, Document Setup, put the 3 in there, and as you tab across, it fills in the 3mm, and we can click OK. Now I've already got my leaflet on the pasteboard from the demonstration I did earlier, so I can Command V that. And InDesign's done a nice job of plonking that in the middle. So what we want to do now, I first sort of concentrate on any imagery that I've got here. So this particular image, so that my logo stands up at the top here, I've got like an overlay which multiplies colour down onto the photo below. So if I drag this out to match the edge of the bleed, we can see that the image hasn't actually moved. So let's just address this bottom right hand corner, because we want to make sure that we're not going to get any strange lines on the overlay. And if I hold Command and click over the top above my image below, I can actually pick up the image below without grabbing the overlay over the top. So let's do the same here and bring that corner out to match the edge of my bleed. And we can see that the photo now goes right into the corner. Let's do the same on the bottom right hand corner. And that has now brought our photo out to match the bleed settings of the document. So there's one thing left to address here, and that is this paint roller effect. And by the way, if the guides get confusing whilst you're working, there's a handy thing here where you can press the W key, and that actually just removes your guides and shows you exactly where your document is going to be trimmed. So you can just get a visual representation of how it's looking. There's other ways to access this feature. By clicking and holding down here, we can flip between the preview mode and the bleed mode. So that actually shows us as well where our bleed is. So we can still see that we need to do some work here with our paint roller, and we can press the W key again to bring up our guides. It's kind of preferences on how you want to work, really. So we can click this image box here with the paint roller in, grab this middle toggle, and then we want to bring that up to match our bleed. So if we press the W key again, we can actually see that none of the items now are going to get trimmed with a white line down the edge. So let's have a look at some other workflows here that can speed up our time. Let's say, for instance, the customer wanted a pink band behind the USP points down below here. What we can do is draw the shape out that we might have used to create the effect that the customer is after. And we're assuming that we did that without the bleed turned on. Let's put some colour in there. And then we're going to hold Command Shift and the back bracket to send that to the back. Then we'll hold Command and the right bracket to just bring that through 2 layers there. So now our icons are sitting on top of the pink banner. I'm just going to do this quite crudely, but we probably wouldn't want that pink sitting with the web address here, so we'll just grab all of that by clicking, holding and dragging over. We don't want to move the photo and the overlay, so I'm going to hold shift and just drag into here as well. That now shows us with these toggles that we've got this whole band selected, and then we can click and hold and also hold shift, and that will bring this up in a straight line. So I want to place that about here. What we could do from here is click on our shape and we could manually drag out to the edge of our bleed, which works. But there's a faster way of doing it. If I Command Z, we know that adding 3mm bleed to the side here and the side here together would be 6mm. So if we look at the width of the pink banner now, which is 148mm, we'll just uncheck this so it doesn't go up in Pro. And if we add 6 to 148, we get 154. And because we had our central toggle here toggled as to where it will expand the shape, it is now pushed out to the bleed edges of the document. That saves a little bit of time. Let's look at another scenario where the customer doesn't want the pink band to go all the way to the edge on the left, but he quite likes it to meet the edge of the leaflet on the right. So we would have been starting from here. To get our bleed working on the right side of the page there, we'll click the middle toggle again and we'll drag that out. So when we get trimmed, we trim along this line here. The pink will bleed off and not reveal some of the image if we're slightly out. And this doesn't matter here anyway because that shape doesn't meet the edge of the leaflet. Now we're happy with our artwork and we know that we've added our 3mm all the way around. Probably wouldn't be happy with this banner here, but this is for demonstration purposes. We can come up to the top and we're going to make ourselves a PDF. Now, like I said earlier, it's worth checking with your printer what their specifications are and if they want anything in particular as far as the PDF settings go. But as a rule of thumb, and most print jobs that I send to print these days, you come up to File and you go to Adobe PDF Presets and we can select this X3. That's a built-in preset and we'll just call this leaflet. And we'll pop that on our desktop. Then we're presented with this Export Adobe PDF window. And as you can see, the X3 is selected here. And in this compatibility field, we normally change this to Acrobat 7, which is another specification that a lot of printers give to us. So a couple of other things that we need to check in here. We just check our page range. We've only got one page, so we're happy that all is selected and it's just a single page file. And then we come into the marks and bleeds here. And what we want to do is put our crop marks on, which are the bits that the guillotine operator follows at the end when it's printed. We add registration marks normally, and then page information. You can add color bars as well. This is normally something that the printer adds later on once they've laid up all of your artwork on the sheet ready to go into the press. And then one major thing that we need to add that we spent all this time on is to check the bleed box. That automatically puts our 3mm bleed in that we've added to the document, and we can click Export. Open your PDF. We can have a quick look that we're happy that our crop marks are here and that our image, our roller effect and our new pink bar that we've added are all going to the edge and beyond these crop marks, so we know that our bleed is there and we're happy. We can now send this file to print and get ourselves a cup of tea. And that's it. You now know how to add bleed to your document before you send it to print. Well on the way to being a professional. If you've got any questions, stick them in the comments. I'll try and answer those. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting out some more videos on the day-to-day things that crop up for me that I think I could help people potentially get faster at and save time, or issues that do arise that are quite common in the day-to-day design studio. So yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!